You're ready.
So, growing up, my mother raised me a vegetarian. And it wasn't until recently that I've had, the choice to eat meat or stay a vegetarian. So, I decided to look at the cost and the benefits of eating meat or not. My claim today is that reducing your consumption of meat has substantial benefits. These benefits are for the individual, for one's health, for the environment, and for how efficiently we use resources that are used to produce livestock. So my first point is that reducing meat consumption can have major health benefits. The Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion rates cardiovascular disease to have a strong correlation with high meat consumption. And obesity, cancer, and diabetes all have moderate correlations with high meat consumption. This is especially significant when you consider that according to the CDC, cardiovascular disease and cancer are the top two causes of death in the United States. Considering these two statistics, it is no surprise that when the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition did a study, very low meat intake was associated with a significant increase in life expectancy in 4 out of 6 studies. So reducing your meat intake can have significant benefits to the individual and can also have benefits on a larger scale. My second point is that reducing meat consumption can have significant environmental benefits as well. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization estimates the meat industry generates nearly 1/5 of all global greenhouse gases. A breakdown of these emissions are 9% carbon dioxide and 37% methane. Most people associate CO2 with carbon emissions, but according to the EPA, methane has a 25 times greater effect on global warming than CO2. So that 37% of total global emissions is actually quite significant. Mongabay.org, which is an environmental news site accredited by CNN and Times Magazine, states that up to 70% of deforestation is due to cattle ranching. So we have carbon emissions and deforestation are both ways that the current rate that we're consuming meat is not doing well for the environment. My third point, which is also on a larger scale, is reducing meat intake will allow for more efficient use of resources that we use for livestock. These resources are water and land. Livestock uses 1/3 of the world's fresh water, according to Time Magazine. And Grace Communication Foundation estimates that 2,000 gallons of water go into a single pound of beef, and only 200 gallons of water go into a single pound of soybeans. So that's 10 times the amount of water used to produce 1 pound of beef than 1 pound of soybeans. And USDA says that tofu has half the nutritional density of beef. So we can use 5 times less water and generate the same net nutrition for a population. And obviously we're in California and we have a water shortage, so that's pretty significant. M.S. Caldy writes in an economic botany journal that using soybeans you can achieve 356 pounds of protein per acre, and with soybeans that's only about 20 pounds of protein per acre. So that's an 18 times less protein per area of land that we're using right now. So these are both ways that we are not optimizing our water or our land when we generate livestock. So in conclusion, the world's consumption of meat currently has harmful effects, and reducing that can have substantial benefits, both to the individual, to the economy, and to the way that we use our resources. So, thank you. That's all.
All right, well, the topic is ID'd pretty clearly. There's a good preview of what the supporting contents are going to be, so that's not a problem. I thought you built a little personal credibility by telling us about your situation. The signpost on the first point is okay. You've got a lot of information there that gets strung together very quickly. Gesundheit, some of it is pretty conclusionary. There's not nearly as much statistical information on this point as there is on the later point concerning resources. There's like some inferences and correlations that are being associated here. I didn't think it was quite as strong as I would expect it to be. So it felt, I don't want to say it was not developed, because I thought you did cite 3 or 4 pieces of information here to prove your point, but it feels a little bit underdeveloped and underexplained on some of these points, and so I think you need to be careful about that. You rely on a study that is kind of a meta study, talking about 4 out of the 6 studies that have looked at this found some kind of extension of life. I do think that you need to quantify that, because it says substantial, but I don't know what that means, so that's potentially problematic. The second issue you transitioned to pretty well. I think your supporting material could be explained a little bit more clearly, but you again this is a good place where there is some good statistical data, where you're talking about resources, and you're talking about how much there's this whole trade-off on protein and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of data here that you're presenting. Sometimes I do think that because you're going through it a little quickly, that the explanation about how this all is working out and how we would weigh the potential benefits is not as clear as it could be. Especially on the third point, for instance, when we get to the resources, I think there's some presuppositions that we're lacking water, that there's deforestation going on, that there's a lack of land that's available, that in essence that this is cutting into resources that we need. And I thought that was a little bit problematic, and so some of the I think the second and the third arguments are a little bit more interdependent than the first argument. The first argument feels like it's one is its own cluster argument. 2 and 3, I think, you've got that Y chain that we talked about a little bit, where they're interdependent with one another. And that's where I think you needed a little bit more explanation. The presentation is generally solid. You seem like you know the material pretty well, and you're mostly trying to explain it. And I thought there was a really solid review at the end of the speech as well. All right, thank you.